I just want to mention before we start, I didn't have a tripod, so I just had to improvise. Now 3D printers, they exist, we have to live with that. But hey, overall 3D printers are pretty great. They can 3D print little trinkets that a redditor can look at and smirk, to intricate engineering products that an engineering student says he's gonna do good things with and then sees the paycheck from Texas Instruments, to even stuff you really shouldn't print like firearms. Hey, I said you shouldn't print them, I didn't say jack about me. But I'm not going to be talking about any of the fun stuff every pasty white guy talks about, but instead, I'm going to be talking about how they work, and more specifically, the science behind them. Or something. I'm recording this at 3, dude. The first thing, the IUPAC names. But first off, what is an IUPAC? Is it the name of a rap group for a 13-year-old kid who says he's from the hood, but in all honesty, I mean, come on, look at that. Or is it a strain of cancer specific to goddamn Pac-Man? But sadly, it's neither of those things I wrote on the bus this morning. But it actually stands for the International Union of Pure and Applied. The International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. And basically what it's meant for is so that all the multi-billion-dollar countries can have a nice simple way to communicate chemistry to each other, and so that one country can't develop a super nuke that nobody understands. And how is this brought to 3D printers? Well, simple, the plastics. And while there's a bunch of plastics in 3D printing, and there's this video from this guy who knows way more about than I do, I'm only going to be focusing on the two big boys today, that being PLA and PETG. Now we're going to talk about PLA first, since that's sort of the granddaddy of all the filaments, and PETG is sort of the abusive stepfather. Now the IUPAC name for PLA is actually polyiatric acid, and it looks something like this, and people made that up. But also keep in mind, people are f***ing idiots. If you don't believe me, look up #bald4Bieber. Yeah. That happened. Now the name polyiatric acid would imply that it's a polycentric acid, when in reality it's actually a polyester, and people have just been misgendering it the entire time. So, sorry to anyone who has a 3D printing firm in the Netherlands. But luckily the IUPAC designation is a lot simpler for PETG. I'm gonna grab a drink. Hey, so when I was filming some stuff, my walking mic had a wee bit of emergency, so I'm just gonna be doing the video like this from now on, so just work with it. Okay, now that we've gone over the basics of our two filaments, I would say we know them pretty damn well. We basically know them as if they were our own children. So naturally, we're gonna make them fight to the death. So we're gonna take our two filaments and put them in a point system battle royale. But instead of the winner getting a victory royale, the winner gets my wallet. Spider-Man. I completely forgot about these. These are the X-ray crystallographies for PLA and PETG, I'm sorry. Now for accessibility, a lot of it comes down to the maximum heat that a 3D printer can put out, because if a 3D printer can't get hot enough to melt the plastic that's in it, it's going to get a little constipated. So generally you'd want to keep the heat requirements low so you can use it on every printer. Now PETG's melting point is between 220 degrees Celsius and 260 degrees Celsius. However, for maximum efficiency for most printers, you'd want to set between 240 and 250 degrees Celsius and the bed temp at 80 to 90 degrees Celsius. But for PLA, it's a bit of a different story. PLA has a melting point from 170 to 180 degrees Celsius. PLA's melting point is between 170 degrees Celsius and 180 degrees Celsius, making it way lower than PETG overall. Now for maximum efficiency, give a nozzle temp between 200 and 210 degrees Celsius and a bed temp between 50 and 60 degrees Celsius. And through intermolecular bonding, these settings give us a great layer adhesion. Moving on. Anyway, these settings mean that PLA can basically run on any 3D printer on the market, and for that alone, it wins. Now for strength, I had an entire bit planned, but didn't actually go to plan. But luckily, the lovely people over at CNC Kitchen did my work for me, so thanks for that. Moving on. Here's a density sheet they made showing the densities of PLA and PETG and ASA, but nobody cares about ASA. Out of the way, you! In the video, they go over how PETG has a density of 1.27 centimeters and PLA has a density of 1.24 centimeters. They also do a strength test by using 3D printed hooks. Now the PETG hook is able to hold 55 kegs or 122 pounds, and the PLA hook is able to hold 73 kegs or 161 pounds. However, to be fair, when the PLA broke, it just snapped right away. But the PETG never snapped, it just kept on bending. This means while the PETG couldn't hold as much weight, it was way more robust. So while with base strength, PLA is stronger than PETG, because of the robustness of PETG, I'm giving it the point.
Where's Dax?
Well, it looks like a new challenger has appeared. A League player's worst nightmare, the sun. Now, PLA really has the essence of a true gamer. It can't go outside or else it'll melt faster than a toddler in the backseat of a car. But PLA can also become very brittle when exposed to liquids in its completed state. To explain it better, when we take our finished product, add moisture, that causes it to oxidize, which makes it more brittle. And the reason why this affects PLA a lot more than PETG in its completed state is because of what it's made of. PETG is a pure oil-made plastic, while PLA is made of cornstarch and sugarcane. Because of its organic-based roots, PLA is often used for stuff like biodegradable cups. And that's why biodegradable cups easily melt in the sun. However, PETG being pure oil-based like most plastics can easily deal with the sun and moisture. That's why PETG is often used for stuff like prototypes and car interiors. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is PETG wins. It also gets a point above every Genshin Impact player. Now the reason I say round 3-ish is because it doesn't really count, because I mean, come on. While we did kind of go over this in the bonus round, there's more to the story here. In the bonus round, we just talked about how oxidation affects their final state and not their filament state. Now, as we already know, PETG is made from pure oil, while PLA is made from cornstarch and sugarcane. And like all things, crude oil can oxidize. Let me put it like this. Say we have our 3D printer hot end, then we insert our PETG filament. The filament getting heated up by our hot end is an endothermic reaction, which is caused by an exothermic reaction. You confused yet? Moving on. Our hot end is adding more electrons to our PETG to turn it from somewhat of a solid state to somewhat of a liquid state, aka our enthalpy property. Then when the filament comes out and cools down to a solid state, that would be our enthalpy property. Why does all this matter? Well, it doesn't. I'm just trying to loosely fit all of this in the rubric. Moving on. The reason oxidation matters so much in our pre-stage compared to our final stage is because of the heating process it has to go through. When you're heating up 3D printer filament plus H2O is a really bad combination, because H2O plus filament causes the filament to bubble up when heating, leading to the 3D printer getting clogged. However, PLA usually manages to avoid this problem completely. Due to PLA melting at a lower temperature compared to PETG, and coming from plants which are by nature designed to deal with moisture, PLA in its filament state can be left out a lot longer than PETG. So I'm saying PLA wins. We've gone over this before. PETG is a plastic made from pure oil, while PLA is made from cornstarch and sugarcane. Now, cornstarch's primary use is as a thickening agent for soups and stews and the such, while on the other hand, oil is primarily used for— Hey, did somebody say oil?! Yeah, of course PETG costs more. It's made out of freedom juice.
Now I gotta cut loose, kick off the Sunday shoes.
Wow, what a mediocre video. However, in the end, were there really any real winners? Yes. Here's the thing. PETG should be used for stuff like cosplay, prototypes, and other stuff, while PLA should just be used for old trinkets and the such. Really how you feel. There really isn't a winner to this debate. I guess except there is. And seeing as this was for my high school chem project, let's ask me after 36 hours of no sleep to answer some questions. How you doing? Yeah, that tracks.